This is SSN
Story Studio Network.
Welcome to the Fatigue Fixer podcast. Have you ever wondered why you and most of the women you know seem tired so much of the time? Well, this is the podcast where we explore why. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Vedboncoeur. I'm a naturopathic doctor, hockey and baseball mom, bookworm, and nerd at heart who's fascinated by the state of modern women's health and well-being. I've had the privilege of treating thousands of women in my practice over the past 14 years, and hearing your stories has taught me an important lesson. Women are incredibly strong, resilient, and self-aware. And yet, too many of us are struggling to show up fully in our lives because we're tired and unwell. I want you to have the energy you need to share your unique gifts with the world because we are in desperate need of more female leadership. So join me for conversations that will help you feel less alone, more informed about all the things that might be draining your energy, and inspired to fix your fatigue and wake up every morning feeling rested and excited for the day ahead. I can't wait to share today's episode with you. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Fatigue Fixer. Today, we're talking about something a little bit different, but so important. What it really means to play big as a woman. For so many of us, especially high-achieving women, there's this constant tension between wanting to step fully into our power, whether that's in leadership, business, activism, or just speaking our minds, and the pressure to be agreeable, accommodating, and likable. We're taught to make ourselves palatable, to soften our edges, to make sure we don't make anyone uncomfortable. But what if playing big means being okay with making people uncomfortable? What if it means standing firmly in our beliefs without over-explaining, apologizing, or asking, does that make sense? And here's the thing, when we don't step into that power, when we constantly shrink ourselves, second-guess our ideas, or carry the weight of other people's expectations, it's exhausting. That kind of emotional and mental load is a hidden drain on our energy, one that no amount of green juice or an early bedtime can fix. My guest today is playing big in an arena that isn't always kind or easy on women: politics. The Honourable Jenna Sudds was first elected as a Member of Parliament for Canada Carleton in 2021, where she currently serves as the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. She has previously served as Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Youth. Minister Sudds has worked as an economist, a municipal councillor, and a community advocate. Minister Sudds has received several awards, including a Special Recognition Award from the Canada Food Cupboard and a 40 Under 40 Award from the Ottawa Business Journal and the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce in 2015. She is a longtime resident of Ottawa, where she lives with her husband and their 3 daughters. This conversation is all about what it takes to show up fully, claim your space, and protect your energy while you do it. Minister Sudds, welcome to the Fatigue Fixer.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm hoping you can fix my fatigue.
That's what we're here to try to do. So you're in the right place. I have to start by telling you that one of the things that really drives the work that I do, and part of what we talked about when we first were thinking about this podcast and why we were doing it, is that one of the things that I find most difficult to see is how women's fatigue really limits their ability to share their gifts, to step fully into their power, and to step into leadership roles. And one of the areas I specifically am so passionate about, where we do need more female leadership, is in politics. So I am really so grateful and honored that you're here. And I will share, and I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before, that I have a secret/not so secret ambition to one day run for office, but
amazing.
Yes. What stops me is looking on the outside in. It just sometimes appears to be a place that can be really hard to thrive in, especially when it comes to our health. So I would love if you would take us back to the beginning when you first started to think about running for office. what was going through your mind that made you feel like that was how you wanted to share like your gifts or?
Yeah, that's a big question. Well, first of all, I'll say it was never something I thought about. So politics was not something my parents really talked about or that I was exposed to growing up. So it was never something I even contemplated, to be completely honest. But I'll tell you, having kids really changed my perspective and really made me think more about how I was spending my time, my life, my energies. And it was really after having my kids, and I have 3 daughters now, that I really wanted to make sure that time was really well spent. And for me, that at first, that was just getting more involved in my community, volunteering, getting involved in my business community in Canada. And ultimately, it led to politics, not by design, but by circumstance. And I will also say on that, it also took others telling me that I should consider it, which is really interesting, right? And it took other women in particular asking me to run in both circumstances, both municipally and at the federal level, which is often the story you hear when women make those decisions. But ultimately, it's about having impact.
Mm-hmm. And I think this has been shown, like even in job applications where men will often apply before they're fully ready. And women often, we have this feeling that we need to have like every single qualification to jump into a job. Yeah. And so I think you're not alone, that a lot of women will probably relate to that we often need that little nudge or we need that support from other people and other women to kind of, encourage us to do something. Did anyone discourage you from running for office?
That's a funny question. I remember explicitly a conversation that I had, and I'm not going to name names because I would feel bad to call them out, but there was a couple that I was friends with from the business community in Canada, and they discouraged me from running. This was municipally the first time I ran, particularly the gentleman saying, like, it'll ruin you. You can't do this. And the female, the wife saying, but we need good people in politics. And I was kind of disheartened, if I'm being honest, because I had a lot of respect for both of them. And so it did make me pause, but it also made me more resolute in making sure that it didn't ruin me, frankly, that I went into this with the right intentions and held myself accountable for my actions and the decisions that I would be making, because I do think it's incredibly important that we have women in politics, that our voices are heard, and that the next generation and our girls see us out there doing this hard work.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so glad you're here, because I know I'm not the only one having these thoughts of, I would like to, and feeling like, what am I going to sacrifice or what's going to happen to me if I like throw myself into the den, right? It sometimes can feel like that. And on the flip side, I agree. We need women. We want women to be represented. So part of what I hope we'll get into today is how can we, as individuals, hopefully make that a healthier environment, but also what are some of the things we need to think about more socially to make that an environment that is friendly for women and for, moms and parents in general. Are there specific things that you maybe had to let go of or had to do differently in order to kind of put yourself into that more public space when you started to run for office?
That's a great question. I mean, what comes to mind right off the bat is the whole notion of fake it till you make it, right? We are our own biggest critic. And so I think just continually putting myself out there into really scary, frankly, situations to build up that confidence and project that confidence, frankly, that I was earning my spot at these tables was really from the outset a challenge, but also a challenge I was up for, right? When I look back in my career, the scariest things that I've done, the scariest decisions that I've had to make in hindsight were always the best ones, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Putting myself out there and taking a chance on myself, right? Having the confidence to know I can run for office. And if I lose, it's okay. I'm still marketable. I still have skills. I still have value. Those scary decisions, just keeping that confidence. And I think the other thing I would say, as I contemplated first running for city council and then, of course, running federally, was reflecting on my family, my husband, my 3 kids, and making sure that, first of all, my partner was game.
Yes,
that we
important.
could, talk through these decisions together, and the impact that it would have as well, of course, on our kids.
When I think a part of why I want to do this episode specifically on playing big is exactly what you just talked about. It's having this idea or this thought, like, I could maybe do that, right? Even though you're probably I don't know if anyone ever feels fully ready to run for office or to apply for the big job or to launch the business. I've done so many things in my life that I didn't feel fully ready for. And I think you're right. It's those times when you're kind of contemplation, when you look back, you're like, thank goodness that I tried it. Otherwise I would have missed out. And I think that is what we don't realize, that when we are playing small and safe, we're actually often missing out on opportunities for ourselves, but also the world is missing out. The world is missing out on your gifts and your message. And I think that's sad. And that's, I that's something I really hope that women can maybe think about differently. One of the things that I think can feel really scary, and I don't know if this is something you experienced, especially in the earlier part of your career, but was managing people's expectations of you, especially when you're maybe stepping into a new job, a job that's maybe more public. How do you manage that part?
Great question. I'm not sure I really do manage it, if I'm being honest.
Great.
The reality is I can do my best, right? I can listen to my constituents. I can listen to Canadians, and I can only do so much. I can only accomplish so much. And I can't worry about what other people think of me. And that sounds simplistic. I absolutely know it does. And it's a hard thing to accomplish. But I think in public life, at some point, you have to turn to that. Because as I've learned in my years in politics, there are always, always, always plenty of naysayers, plenty of negativity. And those aren't the voices that deserve your attention, right? But Brene Brown, if they're not in the arena, they really don't deserve my energy. Mm-hmm. So, I do contemplate that. I do reflect on that. And I try hard not to worry too much about those naysayers, about the negativity, about folks who might question. I think those that are around me, those that know me, know that I'm here to do the work and I'm doing it the best possible way I can.
Do you feel like part of your confidence in not worrying so much about other people's expectations is that you're really solid and clear about your beliefs and what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's always self-doubt. Who are we kidding? I'm by no means perfect and uber confident, but I think over time, I've learned to trust my instincts and to have trust in myself that I will make good decisions most of the time, not all of the time, but that, if I follow my own instincts and inner voice, that it will get me on the right path. And again, there's so much negativity out there that it's not worth letting that in, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. And that negativity just with social media, like it's very loud. It's louder and louder.
It's very loud. It's so loud. And in public life, like it's a lesson you need to learn quickly, I think. One I'm thankful I had people around to help guide me through those early years when, it is difficult to ignore, but it is absolutely necessary in order to be productive and to move forward in your mission.
One of the things that I've noticed and that I've talked about with colleagues is just having an online presence. And people are like, how are you so brave to just say what you think? And I think what I've come up with, and I don't know if this is true for you, but I'm like, for me at this point in my life, it's more important to be authentic and to share the message that I think I'm here to share. That is more important than the possibility of someone not liking it and someone leaving a nasty comment. So I think part of it too is that when you're doing the work that you're meant to do, and that may change obviously over the course of your life, but when you're doing the work you're meant to do and you're sharing things that you truly believe in, not that you don't care what other people think, but I think it makes it easier to care less or be less affected by it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think that comes with time. I think that comes with some experience. But you have to tune it out. You have to be true to yourself and confident in your own beliefs and abilities.
One of the reasons I really wanted to have you here is I think some of the things that women experience on a daily basis, you're maybe experiencing in a more public or more intense way. And I'm even thinking of just thinking of people sitting at the dinner table on Thanksgiving or Christmas, and there's people around who have different thoughts and beliefs. And especially right now, can be a lot of division among people's family and friends. And so how do you encourage people, maybe based on your experience where you're, obviously sharing publicly what you think is a good idea and policies and whatnot, how do we confidently articulate our ideas and our thoughts when we're in, maybe we're at the dinner table with a parent or a friend who strongly disagrees? How do you navigate those conversations?
Well, first of all, I would say it's not always necessary to indulge into, in my world, political conversation with family and friends, because sometimes you just want to preserve those friendships.
Right. Yes.
So sometimes it's good to have some topics that are off board. But otherwise, I would say it's about doing so respectfully, frankly. It is about ensuring you can just have candid, respectful conversations with people who have different opinions. And that's okay. That's what democracy is all about, frankly. People coming at issues from different vantage points. And it's healthy if it is done in a respectful, productive way. So obviously that's not always possible. But trying to keep it on the rails is certainly, objective number one. And then there's always folks that perhaps have differing views and aren't open to discussion. That's much more difficult, of course, to engage in those conversations. Where I can have influence and provide, an alternate view, of course I will. But I also recognize there's barriers and it's not always possible. So it's only so much you can do.
Yeah. I think it's also important to stay open, because I think part of what we're seeing now is that people are so entrenched in their beliefs. And there's this thought that people on the other side, whatever side that might be, are crazy and uninformed and this but you have to realize that they're looking at you thinking the same thing. So if if we're not able to remain open and, like you said, have open, respectful conversations, I think we actually lose a lot and we kind of become insulated. Agreed. And then we live in an echo chamber where we're just being confirmed and reaffirmed of all the things that we already believe. And that's not good for anybody, and certainly not good, like you said, for our democracy.
Definitely not.
Tell me about how the political arena has been for you as a woman. And it was interesting when we were kind of thinking about the questions that I wanted to ask you. it was that question like, how do you balance it? And I'm like, I'm not going to ask her that because no man would ever be asked that. Right?
Yeah.
So
it's so true.
It's so frustrating. And I think it also is a reality that certain institutions and certain environments can be, more difficult for women to thrive in. How have you made that environment maybe healthier for you, or how are you navigating that?
So I think first off, I would say that I think it's really important to have a team around you that helps you navigate that, right? So making sure you have not only colleagues, but your staff, your broader team who keep you grounded, keep you sane, have your best interests, and honestly make the work fun. That's really important. Like when Parliament is sitting, these are incredibly long days. And so, you need your tribe, you need your team to keep you energized, on topic, and having fun, most of all. And so I have always worked hard to make sure I've had a great team. And then I would also say, I'm 46 now, no shame in sharing that. And I think over time, I've also gotten pretty good at knowing what I need to stay sane. And so this job has crazy long hours. There's lots of unpredictability, but there's some things that I can control. And those things give me a sort of routine and stability. So that's my exercise. That's my food. I'll say sleep, but really that is a bit more of a challenge.
Yes.
But there's certain things that help me navigate the challenges of, being on Parliament Hill and being part of the Canadian political landscape that keep me well.
So I think most women, if we look at why they're not exercising or they're struggling to eat well, time and lack of energy are probably two of the most common things that I'll hear for sure. And just knowing how busy and long your days are, and I imagine some days you're also tired, like how do you actually keep those things a priority? What helps you, like even when you've got really busy times, like what helps you actually go and do that workout?
So one thing I would say to that is I've learned over the years, if I don't do it, I'm worse off, right? So I prioritize the first early morning hours, up at 5:30. I prioritize those first few hours of the day for me. And that's my time to get in my exercise, maybe listen to a podcast while I do my hair, that's just my time. And it's pretty easy actually to keep that consistency because nobody else is bothering you. And nobody else needs me at 5:30 in the morning. And the only thing that is going to stop me from doing that is my pillow and not having the willpower to get out of bed, right?
Yeah.
And so that regiment is really important to me. I also, admittedly, I have a slew of folks, an accountability tribe who help keep me motivated and keep me going. And likewise, right, we support each other. And I think that's really important too, because I know if I don't keep up my self-care, my own personal regime, I'm worse off for it. I'm not as good at my job. I'm not as good of a mom or a friend or a wife. Because I've been there at different points in my life. And this version of myself is more productive, frankly.
I think that's such good advice. And yeah, I think sometimes it is just realizing that the benefit of doing it is better than the pain of in that moment. And we did an episode about this on behavior change a couple episodes ago, right? The hardest part of the workout is the decision to work out. It's not usually once you decide and you're doing the exercise, like, sure, it can feel hard if you're tired, but the decision is actually the hardest part.
Yeah,
and it sounds for you like you've created this accountability, which is so important, and also routine. I think we don't realize how important routine is, because it's kind of boring and it's kind of basic, but having a set routine, especially in the morning, actually makes a world of a difference, because you're not having to wake up every day and think, what am I doing today? You're waking up and you're exercising, and then you're doing whatever else you need to do. How do your daughters feel about you being in office? Like, is this something that they are, and I don't know how old they are, but like, are they excited about it? Do they encourage you? Like, how's it affected, I guess, your family with what you're willing to share, obviously?
Yeah. So I have 3 now teenage daughters, or 14, 17, 18. And when I started, obviously I started, I guess, back in 2018. So do the math. My youngest was 8. It's evolved, right? As they've gotten older, we've gone through different phases of how exciting or totally uncool I am. I would say, right, reality.
Yes.
I would say now, like my older kids, my 17, 18-year-old, I think appreciate what I do. I think they understand it more. They come out to some of my events. They've helped on my campaigns. Now, having said that, they do not want me to show up at their school to talk in their class. They do not want people to necessarily know that I am their mother.
Right.
But they do understand now, I think, the work that I do and the importance of what I get to do. And that's really cool, frankly. Like, it is important to me that it's always been important to me that my kids see that anything is possible, and that I'm, living and breathing, the best of what I feel I can contribute to society. And so that's important. And I think I'm checking the box for now anyways. I'm sure they'll move the bar at some point in time, but they're good kids, and it's been fun to have them along on this crazy, wild journey.
I think it's also so important for girls to, I think we talked about this earlier, like just to see women in politics, for it to be completely normal, for there to be lots of women at all levels of government, eventually, hopefully another prime minister. Because I think that does plant the seeds. Like I was the same as you, like no one in my family, that's not true. I have an uncle who was in political life, but otherwise it wasn't really something that was talked about, or something that like was never presented as a career option. And I think that's true for a lot of us. So that's something I hope that we see changing. What are some of your favorite parts of the work that you get to do?
So mostly obviously the people, right? So I would say in my ministerial role right now, I've been rolling out our national school food program, which obviously strikes a chord, being able to ensure that this program gets rolled out across the country so kids can have access to food at school. Feels pretty meaningful, right?
I can only imagine.
It is really amazing. And then if I think about my writing, I mean, every day there's folks who reach out with different challenges, small and big, right? Tremendous amount of immigration related work that happens through my constituency office, and some amazing stories when we're able to help folks and reunite families. Just, pretty incredible work as well. So it's the variety is massive, if I'm being honest. But it's all about the people at the center, right? It's helping people in my community and in my ministerial capacity across the country, whether that's school food or our national childcare program. It feels impactful.
I think that's one of the things that I love about politics, and that interests me about politics, is that When I sit in my office every day, I'm getting to work with individuals, which is amazing and powerful. And I can do very tailored care, but I can never that woman exists within the context of our society. And I think we often don't realize to what extent our environment and our policies and the things that we put money into or don't put money into have a huge impact on our day-to-day experience and on our health and our energy. Mm-hmm. Are there specific policies that you've been a part of or things that you would love to see maybe put in place that you feel would help women in particular?
Oof, that's a big question. So I am really proud of the work that myself and my team have done, both with the National School Food Program rolling out, but also with the $10 a day National Early Learning and Childcare, $10 a day daycare. And I think this is incredibly impactful, particularly for mothers, because let's be honest, childcare is still typically, the burden is typically still borne by the mothers predominantly. And so when I get to, travel the country and talk to moms and dads, it is really evident how impactful this has been. And that's both financially, obviously saving families thousands of dollars. That's wonderful. But it is also opening doors for women to return to a workforce or to start a career that wasn't necessarily possible just a few years ago because of the financial barriers of daycare. And I think that is really incredible for women's empowerment and the impact that this is going to have generationally over the next number of years. It's really, really exciting to me. We're already starting to see the impact on women's participation in the workforce through the data. And I believe we'll see that continue to grow. Reflecting back as well, prior to my ministerial role, I was the parliamentary secretary for the Minister for Women and Gender Equality. And one of the projects that I got to shepherd in that time was around a menstrual equity fund. Mm-hmm. And so this was a $25 million pilot project that we rolled out, and it's just recently rolling up now. But it was about, again, really empowering women with such a basic necessity as period products, which sounds really, basic, but there are parts of this country where it is incredibly hard to source products and or incredibly expensive. And so I'm really happy to have been a part of that work. There's still more that needs to be done. But also just be part of the dialogue, right? Like raising awareness and, obviously providing access to products across the country was a really meaningful piece of work that we still need to focus on. And by no means is it over. But wow, right? Like the ability to be a part of that and to push that work forward was really amazing. And again, reflecting on the impact for women in this country, it's pretty amazing.
That's great. I think again, this is part of why I wanted to do this podcast, is that we don't often realize that all these little things, number one, we have to have a period, and that can be draining, literally, but we also have to go to the store and buy the products and have the money to buy the products, or it's all of these little things that affect our day-to-day life that we don't realize. When you add all of them together, they really do make a difference in terms of how we feel and whether or not we're thriving. What are some of the more tricky or challenging parts of your job?
Tricky or challenging? I'm going to say, as a minister, one of my big challenges is balancing the demands of the being a minister and rolling out these programs and all of those responsibilities with the responsibilities of being a member of parliament representing Canada Carleton. It's challenging, undoubtedly. They pull you in different directions, literally, across the country. And it can be very challenging to do both well, frankly. And I won't pretend that I always do. There's times where one pulls me further than the other. But ultimately, I hope I strike a decent balance. But that's very difficult. I would also say, and I'm sure you can appreciate, like I am advocating on behalf of the people in Canada Carleton. And I'm also advocating for moms and dads across the country. And I am doing so amongst peers who are doing the same for their ridings and their folks and their files. And so it can be tricky at times, I think, to navigate amongst my colleagues those competing needs and like the politics of all of that as well, right? That can be a challenge. In a city as big as Ottawa, obviously I have many colleagues here in the Ottawa region, and we're all working on behalf of our respected constituents, but there can be competing priorities, and there's only so many resources to go around. And I would say one last thing on that, probably the most difficult would be, for me personally, would be the partisan politics of all of this. I was a city councillor before, where there is no party system and you are a lone wolf doing your own thing. And then obviously when I ran as a Liberal in 2021 and getting involved in partisan politics was new for me. And I love my Liberal family. I love my colleagues. I love being part of a team. But as a team player, it does also mean ensuring I pull my weight as a Liberal. And in the current political context with who we have opposite the aisle here in the House, it can be challenging and challenging to ensure that I stay true to myself and I stay positive and upbeat and all of those great things, because the political climate is very challenging.
Yeah. How do you navigate? Because I think part of what maybe frustrates people with politicians are some of the canned answers where, and I've done media training and you're literally trained. You don't answer the question. You just give the answer that you want to give. Right. So I understand why you do it. But how do you navigate maybe when there's a disconnect between Jenna Sudds' individual beliefs and thoughts and Minister Jenna Sudds, part of the Liberal Party, who maybe is expected, or the kind of party line is this, and maybe that differs? Because I think that's something a lot of people can probably relate to, that you have certain thoughts and beliefs, but maybe you're expected or you think other people want to hear something different. How do you navigate that tension when maybe what you're expected to say and present doesn't fully fit with maybe your own personal beliefs?
Yeah. So I think I've been lucky in that I don't, in this role in federal politics, I have been able to stay true to my beliefs and my values. I think where I've had to put some effort, if you will, is around how messages are delivered, right? Because to your point, of course there are, we'll call them loosely party lines, but of course there's a position taken by government, and you have to navigate that as an MP, as a minister. But I would also say that the Liberal Party is a big tent and is an incredibly inclusive, welcoming space. And so I know when there's a message to be delivered that I can do so authentically. I can do so in my own voice, following my own values, and that my values are aligning. I just may need to say it in a different way.
Right.
So it is challenging. I will not doubt it. My days are very chaotic, and, the time to prep for things is not always as much as a reasonable human being would like.
Right.
So, there's that reality of kind of rolling with the punches, but I think it's incredibly important that we do use our own voices. We are representing our constituents. They've elected me. So it is my job to convey those messages.
I think that's also for anyone listening. Like, we don't realize how draining it is to maybe be thinking one thing and having to say something else because that's what you think the other people want to hear. Have you had to navigate a lot of like tone policing, or like just people, I'm sure, have all kinds of thoughts about what you're doing and your party and the prime minister? Like, is that something you have to navigate, or do you have a good team who kind of like shelters you from a lot of that negative commentary?
I'm navigating that every day.
Right. Okay.
Including my own team, right? Who have their best intentions, who, will try to coach me to, be a certain way or not.
Right.
Always with the best of intentions. But that's okay. Like, I respect that I've got some brilliant people around me, both staff, stakeholders, other ministerial teams, prime minister's team, constituent team, all of whom have an opinion and would like to see and hear certain things. Ultimately, I need to be true to myself in how I present myself and my thoughts. I respect opinions. I'll take advice, but ultimately, it's going to be my decision how I move forward. But I value different perspectives and input. I mean, I think that's how we get better as elected officials, as communicators. It takes practice, it takes experience, and there's folks out there with much more of that than I have. So I'm happy to listen, but ultimately I'm going to decide how I move forward.
I think that's such an important lesson. I was just writing that down. And I think that's relevant for anyone, right? That it's fine to ask other people's opinions, especially if those people have more knowledge and more experience. But that doesn't replace you checking in with what is right or true for you. And I think what can be tricky is navigating that tension of like, well, that person, I think they know what they're saying, but I'm going to maybe do it my way. I'm going to do it a little bit differently based on what feels true and right for me.
Yep. And then there'll be feedback afterwards, and some people will like it, some people won't, and we'll move on.
But that's real life, right? And again, I think
that is real life.
If you create and shape your life based on feedback, you're going to be zigzagging for the rest of your life, and you'll exhaust yourself doing it. Feedback is great, but at the end of the day, like you said earlier, all you can do is do your best and try to show up authentically and do your job. And people are going to have thoughts no matter which way you decide to do it. And I think, again, part of what keeps us playing small is we're trying to keep all these random people happy, which is never going to happen. So if we just let go, it doesn't matter what way you deliver the message, someone's not going to like it. So why don't you just deliver it the way that makes you happy and keeps you happy? Yeah. So on that note, 100%. What keeps you like energized and inspired to do this work? Because I can only imagine how long and draining some of the days are.
I'll say in large part my kids, honestly. I mean, I am working to make life better for them and for all Canadians. But my aspiration is they will benefit, my grandkids will benefit, everyone, right, will benefit. So they are truly my inspiration. They keep me going, even though they're teenage girls.
We've been there. We know what that's like.
Yeah. There's trying times, but my oldest daughter has started first year university and has moved out, and like she'll snap me multiple times a day. She keeps in touch. She keeps me laughing. She keeps me on my toes. It is their youthfulness, their innocence, their aspirations that, keep me grounded, but also inspire me to do more every day.
If your daughter comes to you one day and says, "Mom, I want to run for office," what advice would you have for her or for any other woman like me who's got this seed planted? What would you say to us?
So I will not be surprised of my 3 daughters if one of them does. I would say to her or anyone else, any female contemplating this, to do it. Honest to goodness. Absolutely, it is difficult work, but it is difficult work worth doing, right? If we don't take our seat at the table as women, as leaders, how can we expect to influence change? How can we expect for society to evolve, to include us in even bigger ways? So, I think it is 100% work worth doing. I think it is important to have a tribe with you along the way. I won't deny that, because it is hard and you do need to have an outlet. You do need to have support. But it is an opportunity of a lifetime to shape the future for Canadians and for our country.
I think so many women are already doing difficult work, and what you just said is so powerful. If you're going to do difficult work that's worth doing. And that's going to be something different for everyone listening to this.
Absolutely.
But those are very powerful words. Thank you so much for being here today. I really do appreciate your time and your candor and your honesty in our conversation today. So for everyone listening, I hope, even if you have zero political aspirations and your thought of being a politician is your worst nightmare, I still hope that you're walking away from this episode feeling fired up, because here's the truth: playing small is exhausting. You're constantly filtering yourself. You're worrying about how you'll be perceived. You're trying to make sure you don't take up too much space. It drains your energies in ways that you don't realize. And you'll never feel fully inspired and energized if you're not doing something that is meaningful. When you start to show up fully and you share your ideas and you stand in your beliefs, you let go of the need to be liked by everyone. You tap into a whole new source of energy. You stop carrying the weight of other people's expectations and you start channeling that energy into what actually matters. And that might be your work, your passions, your family, your joy. So please let this be your permission slip to play big, to speak up, to take up space, to stop apologizing for your presence and your power. The world doesn't need you watered down. It needs you fully lit up. And if running for office has ever crossed your mind, maybe this is your sign to go for it. As Minister Sudds said, just go for it, because we do need more women with big ideas, strong convictions, and the courage to lead. If today's conversation resonated with you, I would love to hear about it. Come find me on Instagram and tell me what's one way you're going to start playing bigger in your own life. Until next time, take care, and I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for spending your precious time with me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you would send it to a woman in your life who needs to hear it. And there's no better way to help me reach more women who want to fix their fatigue than to take 2 minutes to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. Ready to get more insight into what's making you tired? Find out which of the 5 most common types of fatigue you're dealing with by taking my fatigue fingerprint quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. Are you dealing with frazzled fatigue, where your body's exhausted but your brain won't shut up, making it hard for you to fall asleep? Or maybe you're more of the drained fatigue type, where no matter how much sleep you get, you're never rested and struggle to get up in the morning. Just take my fatigue fingerprint quiz and your results will include a list of recommended labs you can ask your doctor for, as well as my top recommendations for which habits and practices are best for fixing your type of fatigue. Find the quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. Because being tired all the time isn't normal, and you deserve to have good energy. Last but not least, I want to thank Jen Hudson and Mike Trutler over at Story Studio Network for bringing these conversations to life. I'll see you right back here in 2 weeks. Bye!